Hey, what's going on? It's Phil, the Blerd Explorer, aka the Six Raikage, and you're watching Blerdography. Go check him out when you get the chance, man. Peace.
You're now listening to Blerdkast, presented to you by Blerdography.
I feel like Mike Jordan, give me the rock and I'm scoring. Hey, came from the bottom, that's foreign. I swear that I'm up for the sun in the morning. Oof, hey, I gotta flex. I need a Nike bag.
What's going on, everybody? It's me, Mark. Welcome back to another episode of Blerdkast. And on this episode, we are finally, for the first time, going international. We are going international with this episode. On today's episode, I like to welcome a fellow content creator, a Blerd Explorer, if you will. He travels the world. He is right now, as we speak, in Seoul, Korea, right? You're in Seoul?
Well, South Korea. I'm not in Seoul. No, I don't live there.
Okay. So you're in South Korea at an undescribed location in South Korea. To the show, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. So for those who don't know me, my both TikTok and Instagram, I go by the Blerd Explorer. Basically, my thing is black traveler, black gamer, black food, all black everything. So usually, most of the time, if I'm not doing travel-related content, because obviously, it costs money to travel, do travel-related stuff. So most of my content is more like blurred, like black nerd, gaming, anime, all nerdy shit stuff, like doing the downtimes. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Am I allowed to use profanity on your podcast?
Go for it.
Okay, I just want to make sure because everybody's got their different rules, so I want to be respectful.
No, it's fine. All right, so you are the Blerd Explorer, and like you said earlier, you are in South Korea at the moment.
Right.
Where did you get your start? Just not only being a blerd, but where did you get the idea of becoming a Blerd Explorer?
So the blurred part, that definitely takes back to the 90s. So for me, like, I don't hit the tropes. Like, I would make the joke, like, say, my black power doesn't, like, when God made me, he didn't give me the black power for basketball or sports or fashion. He gave me the black power of nerdom, fighting games and stuff like that. So, like, I got black and play, I got BCPD. I can't play back. I'm black. I can't play basketball, but I can do something in like Smash Bros. And other fighting games. I can do something. But for me, I would say definitely back in the day, in the 90s, I was born in 91. I would say most of my nerd stuff came, watching X-Men 97, Batman animated series, Pokemon, and other video game related stuff. And of course, going to various arcades and seeing Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat 2 or 3, I would say 3, and Marvel vs. Capcom, X-Men vs. Street Fighter. So that got me, into more fighting games. That's why I got into fighting games a lot because of those games. Around like teenage years, like 2000, of course, with Toonami, Naruto, One Piece, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, particularly. That's what got me into anime. Like everybody else in the West, like Toonami was the GOAT. Got Toonami, 4Kids, got me into anime. And funny enough, I didn't get really into Western comics until college, like around the early 2010s, when the game Injustice, Gods Among Us. Do you know that game?
Yes, very, very.
Yeah. So that game, when the first game came out, I got that game. I had a great time with it. And one of my homies, Chris, he was talking to a friend of his, we were in the cafeteria. I just walked in, sat down to get some food, right? And he was talking about the Injustice comic book. I'm like, wait, they have a comic book for this? Because I actually like the games too, but I didn't know, I know it was a DC game, but I didn't know they had a comic book tied into the games, right? Mm-hmm. So I looked into it and I just couldn't stop reading. Now, honestly, I know the Injustice story is like his own side story, it's not canon, but it's like, you know what? That got me into it. And then I got into, was it DC Comics New 52 era. And that, led me down the rabbit hole, get to Western Comics. Image Comics, that company, especially Invincible. I picked that up years later, and that became one of my favorite series. So now I haven't read everything. I'm still behind when it comes to Marvel and DC, but that's what led me to start reading more Western comics, and I still read mangas and whatnot. And of course, I'm also a history nerd too. Like I love reading about history, all types of history, food history, U.S. history, Black history, LGBT history. I'm very fascinated by that recently.
That's what's up. Me and you have a lot of similar backgrounds when it comes to like our nerddom, Toonami being our gateway drug into not only just anime, but just Eastern culture as a whole. And like you, I'm a fighting game junkie. but I severely suck at it. So I was like, I retired my sticks a long time ago. Something about just getting juggled in Tekken Tag Tournament too just didn't sit well with me. I was like, never again will I do this.
Funny enough, like I didn't really get Speaking of Tekken though, like I was a Nintendo kid. I had an N64, so when I went to childhood friends' houses, they had Tekken 3 back in the day. But I never got Tekken. I would say out of all the big three, between Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, I'm better at Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, but I'm terrible at Tekken because I have more exposure, more experience with Street Fighter and Tekken than I do with Tekken. Excuse me. No, I'm better with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. Tekken's my worst game. Like I could probably do something in Tekken, like Tekken 8, but I'm gonna lose. Like
okay, yeah, because so the most funniest video that you have done that I watched was you getting destroyed by a King player. And you just, I saw like the life in your eyes just like extinguish.
It's like, I'm gonna take this out. I'm gonna take this out. Like, this is the one time I will fight for my black card. Like, if my black card gets taken, I will voluntarily give it away just because I can't win Tekken. That's the only time I'll give it away. I'm like, yeah, here, take my black card. I'll take it. I'll lose it.
Now, that brings up an interesting question. So you played, you probably huge in the fighting game community stateside, but now that you're in Korea, how is the gaming culture there? Because I assume you probably would play online games and never win, not one. Okay, that's what I figured.
Yeah. No, I do that. So for me, the most scenes I've been to is the Super Smash Bros. Scene. I can talk more about that because for those who don't know, like Korea, particularly a lot of Asia countries, particularly East Asia, like PC game is the main thing too. So it's really expensive to go into buy console games or really electronics in Korea particularly. So obviously, PC games have been a thing. Arcades have been a thing. It's more popular, especially nowadays. With smartphones are huge for Koreans. If they're not playing, League of Legends, Overwatch, obviously Tekken is massive. Tekken, Street Fighter is huge. Korea is pretty new to when it comes to Super Smash Bros. Because back in the day, like I moved to Korea back in May 2016. I've been here ever since doing ESL. I'm an ESL teacher. That's my main job. And I come from a country like Korea, like USA, where Smash Bros is huge, especially in college, right? Everybody's playing Super Smash Bros, right? So I was there for I came in during the Super Smash Bros for Wii U era, and of course, there's no places like you had to know somebody who had a Wii U to play Smash Bros. So I couldn't get no fixing. It wasn't until the Switch and Super Smash Bros Ultimate came out. That's when Korea started to get recognized in the world. And that's why you see more Smash Bros. Tournaments here in Korea.
Okay.
Yeah, so now there are Street Fighter tournaments, there are Tekken tournaments for sure, but I ain't gonna touch Tekken because I'm not gonna listen, I tried signing up for a Street Fighter tournament when Street Fighter 6 came out. I didn't survive. I'm not gonna take this. So I figured, hey, I'm not gonna try to touch Tekken. I'll go to an event just to hang out, but to sign up, nah, I'm not gonna try to win. I'm not gonna get a hit. I know these people.
Gotcha. I trust me, I understand. But let's just kind of dig into you a little bit. So you are, like you said, you're in South Korea. You are an ESL teacher. What has that experience been like for you? Why did you want to go to South Korea to teach? And how is it going so far?
Well, I guess you can start over. I'll explain what name Blerd Explorer came from. So for me, growing up, I always had this interest in traveling the world, living overseas, right? Trying all these types of foods. But, growing up in America, I'm pretty sure you can probably understand this. So like a lot of black people, I didn't know any black person who traveled the world that wasn't in the military or was for work related. If there was a work, it's because they were in the military most of the times, right? I mean, you had that one bougie auntie, I got one who traveled a little bit, but like I said, that's not most people I knew traveled a little bit abroad was always in the military. And I almost went down that route, but I backed out. I'm like, I realized, I still want to travel, but I want to do it on my own terms, And so fall 2015, I'm in my last semester of university, I'm sending out resumes, trying to go job interviews, doing job fairs, couldn't find nothing. And then one day I saw an ad for about teaching ESL, teaching English as a second language in Korea. And I started looking more into that. And I realized, there's my opportunity to travel the world, live overseas, right? Because something I always wanted to do. And so I did more research into that. And I thought about going to Japan, but I kind of settled on Korea because the difference is, I could teach ESL in Korea and Japan, right? The difference is, one of the benefits is, like in Korea, I don't pay rent. The employer pays your rent. But while I was in Japan, I would pay rent. I'm still responsible for your bills and utilities, right? But in Korea, I don't have to worry about rent. Of course, the downside is, you're not gonna get the nicest house or housing, of course. So, So, but take what give and take, right? So I came to Korea in May 2016, and it has been a trip. It has been a crazy experience. I've been here before COVID, during COVID, and so I used to work at what we call the Hagwons. These like for-profit academic crams tutoring center. So And that's a whole thing that could be a whole episode. Like if you ever get a chance, like check out the Hogwarts horror stories that I made plenty of TikTok videos about that, explaining about that. And so I switched to public school in 2021, like early 2021 during COVID. So I'm here right now working at elementary school here in South Korea. Okay. Now the Explorer, so what kind of let me, I don't know jumping at gun about this though, but for my travel content, reason is more Black travel related content because like I said before, like, you know, I really seen anybody who looked like us travel the world or seen people who make Black travel related content, right? Because obviously when it comes to traveling overseas, everybody's gonna have their experience with our skin tone, with my ethnicity. I'm gonna get treated differently than a white person, right? And especially like, you know, colorism, which is deeply ingrained in throughout Asia, right? That's centuries old. That's culture. And so for my travel content, I kind of want to show people like, hey, true, yes. Is there xenophobia? Yes. Is there some places that are racist as hell? Yes. But I want to show people that, you know, hey, it is possible to travel the world. You can still do it safely, but everyone's going to have a different experience. Because I'm not sure if you've seen it before, right? You've seen people who post about black travelers who talk about, oh, don't go to Spain, don't go to Italy because it's racist, right? Yeah. One person will say it's racist, but other people say, hey, I went there, I went to the same location, I had a great time. So I want to show people, yeah, hey, true, that does happen, but everybody's going to have a different experience. And that's the same thing in Korea too. Like there's some people who I was trying to reach out to this podcast about, you know, talking about my books, about, you know, traveling into Korea. And she says, I had a friend who go to Seoul and they had a racist experience. And other people and similar people are talking about this, like other people, they went to Korea, they had a great time. Some people came to Korea, had a bad time. I'm not going to say and pretend it doesn't happen. There's a racism, there's xenophobia, there's colorism, but I just want to let people know, yes, it is possible to go there. You can still have a good time, but everybody's going to have a different experience. That's my main thing when it comes to traveling. I tell people, you're going to have a different experience. No two experiences are going to be the same.
Since you're talking about your experiences or the experience of traveling overseas, you are a 6'7" tall Black man in Korea. Yeah. How has your personal experience gone in South Korea since you have been there? While being a 6'7" tall Black man, like I'm sure, like nothing fits you. I'm sure you have to go out your clothes, and I'm sure it's just crazy for you over there.
It is. Now it is possible for tall and plus size people to buy clothes, right? But like, okay, for me, if I want to go to Seoul to buy clothes shopping, that's like a 4-hour bus ride just to go buy clothes on a Saturday, on the weekend. I'm like, I'm not doing that just to buy clothes. Just to know, like, because at least just to travel there and only find out, oh, they only got one pair in my size and they're out. And I'm like, nah, I don't buy clothes in Korea. So pretty much like everybody, I do the foreign tax, aka I buy all my clothes from overseas and have it shipped here because it's just like easier because I know at least when I buy clothes from Amazon, whatnot, I know they have it in my size. If they don't have it, it's because they're out that time. They'll get more later on. So it is possible for plus size and tall folk to travel, but it's just not going to be easy, you know, traveling, you know, trying to go do clothes shopping here. And of course, you know, being tall in Asia, right? It's just impossible. Like I got back problems. Like I start doing more yoga, just, you know, work on my back, do more back workouts because of all the bending down I'm doing. Like I literally had to like bend down like 45, like a few degrees just to enter the subway in the subway carts.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. What was the culture shock like? I know you did a little bit of traveling before you settled in South Korea, but once you got settled, what was that culture shock like to you?
Well, to be fair, okay, so my first travel abroad, I was like 8 years old. I went to visit my dad, who was, I think at the time, he was stationed in Germany, I think, in the 90s. So that was my first time. But again, I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, so I don't count that. I don't remember that much over there. I count Korea my first time, both traveling and living overseas. The shock was different because obviously I'm going from a diverse country like USA, where everybody got a little bit of something, right? To where it's just 98% all Korean, up and down, left to right. And of course, especially going to the fact that I lived in towns and cities where there's not a whole lot of Black people. There's not a whole lot of non-white foreigners in those towns. Because now there are Black people who live in Korea, but most of them I live in the big cities like Seoul, Daegu, Incheon, and that's fine. But you know, I lived in those cities before, but mostly I chose the cities that are different because obviously, you know, hey, I needed a job, so I'll take what I can get, right? And currently, my current town where I live in, there's no Black people. I'm like the only Black person, non-white foreigner here. And the kids are great. The job's fine. But if I ever wanted to see other people of color, I had to travel to other cities, you know, just to see another non-white person.
Do the local residents like look at you like you're some kind of commodity or like, oh, they've never seen a Black person before? Because I've talked with other African Americans who travel abroad, especially like in Japan. And they tell me like the racism in Japan and in South Korea and other Asian countries, it's like uniquely weird and different. Like people come up to you and just stare at you. Oh, a black man, you must be rapper. Yeah. And then like on the other hand, like they'll like just be infatuated with you because you're not white, and that has a certain like feel to it or cringe to it as well. But how has your experience been on that regard?
Pretty much like you said, nail on the head. You have to keep in mind, like especially for in this case Korea, like a lot of both Korea, Japan, like most Koreans, the locals stick to themselves. Like they don't make friends or talk to people outside the groups or the cliques, right? When they see it, and most Koreans, like when they learn English, so most kids will learn English from the time they're young, like as 3, 4, 5 years old, right? All the way into university. Most of them will never have a non-white English teacher. So you can see why they never really had the opportunity to interact or talk to a non-white person. So obviously when you see those videos of, locals go crazy for seeing a black person. Yeah, I can see why. Because let's be honest, up and down, like from the time they're 5 years old to being 30s, 40 years old, it's like, oh my God, there's actually a black person. They're not what they see on TV. Because let's be honest, most times when they see a non-white person, it's because what they see on TV and the media or music, whatever. And so for kids, like I work with kids, I work in elementary school. So a lot of kids, like I'm probably the first non-white ESL teacher they will ever have in their lifetime. It's not unheard of. And so obviously they may have questions. Teacher, you're from Africa, teacher, why are you so dark? Or, those type of questions. Like, it's like, okay, I can let it slide because they're young. They're like 5, 6, 10 years old. Okay, you're young, I'll let it slide. I can answer your question. At least educate them. It's the 30, 20-year-old, 40, 50-year-olds who I'm like, okay, you are too damn old to ask these questions. Calm the fuck down.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh, but like, I
no,
that's that. Oh my God. Okay.
No, it's fine. It's like, yes, I have those questions before. Or like, teacher, you look like Black Panther. And that happened when the movie came out in 2018. Like when Black Panther dropped, literally, I had kids the following day, like, teacher, Wakanda forever. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry for that. But
the funniest interaction I ever had with a kid. I was living in the city of Daegu. I went to Costco, right? I was doing some shopping, mind my business. I turned to the frozen freezer section, right? This little 4 or 5-year-old boy at the time, he's talking, like a little kid. He's talking to his mom. He sees me, does a double take. His eyes get huge. He yells, "Mom, there's a giant chocolate form." And the mom got super embarrassed. Everybody in the aisle heard him and started laughing. And I walked away laughing because that was the funniest interaction I had in a long time. Like,
okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I couldn't help but just die laughing in those situations. Because again, you're right. They're kids. They don't know any better. And like you said, they'll probably go their whole entire lifetime by only seeing us on TV and being represented that way. So seeing a black person in person to them, like you said, it's like 99% homogenous Korean there. I get that. So, but it's still like hilariously funny, but also like cringe at the same time.
It gets old pretty fast, but like I said, they're kids. I'll let it slide. It's just the adults who have that same reaction. It's like, okay, bro, you're too damn old. Like you're too damn old to like a child like this. You should know better by now.
Right. I get that. But speaking of the kids, since you are an ESL teacher on the elementary level, how is it teaching English to grade school kids of that age? Do they seem to pick it up quickly? Because like you said, they already know a lot of English before they get to you. So once they're in front of you, you're basically just kind of helping them phrasing things, I'm assuming.
Yes, pretty much. Now it varies from kid to kid, depending on where you're from, what city you're in. So a lot of kids, especially since I'm in an elementary school, just like with schools in the world, right? You got various levels of experience, right? Some kids have no idea what they're doing. They don't know anything. They don't know the alphabet. While others, like some kids, like particularly, I have kids who lived abroad and who are fluent in English. They can have a conversation with me all day, every day. And so it varies from location to location, right? Now I'm in a small town, so I was shocked when I had when I got some new kids come through, right? And it turns out, they're fluent overseas because they live overseas. They're fluent in English. So I was like, damn, I gotta work with them. Like, I gotta make sure they're not bored.
Right.
Because I'm sure they're bored because obviously teaching English as second language and basically taking, I work with 5th grade students, right? But basically I had to wire it down to like 1st grade pre-K levels of trying to learn how to speak English, how to read, or write basic sentences. The problem is, of course, when it comes to teaching ESL in Korea, it's not taken seriously enough. Like learning English, it's only like the idea of Korea education is all about memorization. It's all about passing tests, right?
Right.
So you got kids like, okay, they can learn the rules, they can learn the grammars, and practice spelling, right? But there's no focus on trying to learn how to speak, how to have conversations in English. There's not enough focus on that. And on top of that, there's not enough time to work with kids who need help. Like I got kids right now, like 5th grade students who like this, I'm on a like higher level, right? Intermediate level of a book, right? But who need to go back to beginner level. They don't know the alphabet. They can't really write English. They don't know the basic words. They should have learned back in the first level, right? But I can't really help them. I can't really take the time out to help them because if you know anything about Korean culture, right? Most kids, as soon as they finish school, they're going to academy. They got Taekwondo practice. They got like science, art academy, English academy, Hogwans, like right after school. So I can't pull them to the sides. Let's say, okay, here during lunchtime, come with me and let's do some tutoring because because also one of the struggles is like kind of ethical dilemma. Like I want to help these kids, but at the same time, this is the only time to get a break. Like working at the school, like during lunchtime, like the only time to get a break to be a kid, have fun. So it's kind of like that dilemma. So for me right now, after living 8 years in Korea, I'm doing this online teacher certification program so I can get my teaching license so I can move back to the USA, become a licensed ESL teacher. Because at least there's more, I would say more resources, more opportunity to actually help the kids. Because especially Korea culture, one thing is they have some similar to like No Child Left Behind. Like I can't fail a kid, they can't be left behind to stay behind to help them. Because I know some of these kids need help. They need to stay behind because they need it. But I can't. But the kids, they'll just move up to the next level.
Wow, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and that's not just the English, but all the subjects too. Like kids can't fail. And one of the things, like, you might hear tropes like how the Korean children, they listen, they do the work. Nah, they're just as bad over here. And especially in just as bad as kids around the world, they're just as bad. Some of them cause problems. And of course, it's tied to the parents. So I know we talked about it in the chat, like how, like, told me how, hey, these kids in America, they're bad. Yeah, you're right, they are. But their children are just bad anywhere in the world.
True.
There's no different. It's no different. We heard about the K-drama bullies. It's not. They're real.
But I still find it fascinating that even in another country halfway around the world, their educators there are having the same struggles that our educators here are having.
Oh, very, very. Especially Korean teachers. Like, last year, it's not unheard of, but last year, I think it's an international story of a Korean teacher who unfortunately self-game overed. Because mostly due to the parents, because obviously you might hear stories of Korean students hitting the teachers, disrespecting the teachers. Korean, just like in America, you have parents who are cussing out teachers or blaming the teachers, like, oh, why is my child not doing the homework? Why is my child failing? Ma'am, sir, we reached out, we emailed you, we called you, we text you, hey, your child is failing. He needs help. He's not listening. He's throwing chaebol. He's being a bully to the other children. Will you talk to your kid? So it's just like that.
Gotcha.
So parents letting the schools and teachers raise their kids, but not wanting to be a parent. It's just like that here in Korea too.
I kind of figured it would have to be something like that. But I'm sure that's just a worldwide issue, not like a.
Yeah, it is. The teachers worldwide. Like the people. I mean, there's not so much here in Korea, but honestly, I've actually met these couple. Funny enough, I was in Cambodia back in February. I talked to this couple from the UK. They're both teachers as well. And they said, hey, we got problems over here just as much as in America with these kids, with the parents.
That's fascinating. That is very fascinating. So I'm going to pivot a little bit and go back to why you chose Korea. You chose South Korea because you had a familiarity with it. Or do you speak Korean at all on any level?
Nah, I'm still like a toddler learning his first few words, man. Like that's not bad. I've been here 8 years. I tried studying last year. Like I did like a little language exchange with another Korean teacher who, funny enough, she lived in Atlanta. She was a college exchange student in Atlanta, Georgia in the 2000s. And I'm like, wait, why Atlanta? Well, I keep forgetting, like, there's like the Korean embassies in Atlanta, Georgia, like in Georgia too.
Yeah, Atlanta
and there's a big Korean population. Yeah. And was it the Kia factory? There's a Kia factory over there in Georgia too, if I recall. Yeah. Which is funny enough, because when I was previously, preparing to do my passport, get my visa, work visa, all that stuff, like I was expecting to send my, passport to DC. They're like, no, send it to Atlanta, Georgia. I'm like, wait, Atlanta? The Korean people in Atlanta? But yeah, so I figured that, so I did research, because usually most people who do ESL usually end up either going to Korea. It's kind of like the default, the go-to spot for a lot of people, or Japan. But usually you can make somewhat a little bit more money in Korea, but not too much,
Gotcha. I find it interesting that you kind of don't speak any Korean. I've been trying to teach myself. I started out with Japanese like 20 years ago and still learning that very difficult language. But then I came across Hangul, Korean for everybody else. And it is so simplistic and it's
learning to read is easy. Like it's funny enough, the alphabet's easy. Yeah, it's easy for me to pick up the alphabet. I can read the alphabet easily, but it's just trying to pronounce the words because obviously, one of the struggles like why Koreans have a hard time learning English is of course the font, the sounds, and expresses are very differently because it's different language. Like some people, like Koreans have a hard time expressing how to use "la" or "ra" in English, so it can be difficult. And it is possible. Like one of the struggles, like of course, a lot of foreigners, like especially there are people who lived in Korea for like 10+ years, they don't know how to speak Korean. They don't even try. And while I try to make attempts to learn, try to show the kids, especially my kids, show them, hey, I understand why you have a hard time learning English. Teacher has a hard time with Korean. So I tried to show them that's a way to show them, hey, you're not alone. I understand your struggle.
Is it difficult for you being an English teacher to navigate in Korea without knowing any Korean?
It can be, depending on like some, like say, like bureaucracy or other issues right now. Like say going into the bank, right? Because sometimes like I feel like a child, like, damn, I can't go to the store. If I'm going to the grocery store, like I can't ask them, hey, where's the milk or where is this item? Like I gotta use the translation app. It's like sometimes I get tired of that. Like I just want to talk to somebody.
Right.
So it can't be like just for like say, hey, because I feel like a child, like, not be able to ask a basic question, like say, hey, can you help me how to get to this location? Or like say, for example, if I got a problem with a student, like I can't go to the Korean teacher because some of the Korean teachers aren't fluent in English, right? And it's like, okay, I can't effectively communicate in Korean. Like I obviously sure I can use a translation app, but sometimes it'd be nice to be able to just talk to somebody without using the phone,
No, that would get really tiring after a while.
And I know some people say, hey, why don't you just learn the language? Like, yeah, it's possible, but like since I'm preparing to leave Korea, it's like it makes no sense for me to go try to practice, because I'm bound to leave Korea for good, right? But also it's more of it's everybody learns languages different. Because some people can learn quickly, others will take years just to be able to make basic conversation. And for me, knowing me, it would take years just to be able to ask the most basic questions in Korean.
That's interesting. But on the flip side, and I guess a caveat to that, because you speak English and English is the most commonly spoken language in the world, next to like Cantonese and Spanish, would be more easier for you to kind of get around and just say, hey, do you speak English? Because I have a lot of friends who travel, they go to Japan, and English is a lot more common than you think in some of these areas of the world, but also it's English mixed with local language that kind of throws people off still.
Yeah, they have something like that called Konglish, like said, kind of fusion words, like borrowed words, like cheeseburger, or coffee, or things like that. So it does get frustrating. It's like when I asked last year, when I asked my coach, the Korean instructor, who's also a teacher here at my school, I asked him, hey, how do you say this word in Korean? Oh, it's this. But it's English. I'm like, oh, seriously? Like, I was feeling more difficult. I'm like, God.
Yeah, I get that. I can get that. That's crazy. That is crazy. Why leave Korea now? You've been there 8 years. Why make the decision to want to prepare to head back to the States and then just be back home?
I've actually made a long video about this, though, but to keep it short, it's more for career opportunities. So one thing, like a lot of people, I started doing ESL right out of university, right? And I enjoyed everything, being like early 20s, well, mid-20s, in my mid-20s, but like a lot of people who teach ESL, like right out of university in the 20s, right? You get to travel, you do a lot of things, and in a lot of cases, you make more money than your classmates. But it's like when you get into your 30s, now I'm 33, right? You realize, okay, it's not a sustainable long-term career. There's no real retirement. There's no pension. There's no real career growth opportunities to be had teaching ESL in not just Korea, but also China, Japan. Well, China, you can make more money, but like I said, it's not really long-term. Especially, say, for example, if you get married to a local, you got to marry your kids. You realize, oh, yeah, I can't support a family on this salary anymore. And for me personally, like a lot of people, like I'm a non-education major. I major in business, right? But because I've done teaching ESL in a public school, I made me realize, you know what? I actually like teaching. I actually like being in a classroom. Let me get my license. Let me level up my game, right? Because I want to level up my game, but also, school bill. But what I do like teaching, but I realize, and me and some other people talk about this too, like, it's not really teaching English in Korea ESL is not a long-term viable career. Because eventually you will hit a salary cap, at least in Korea. Eventually you make salary cap, and you're not going to level up. Like even if, like, say, for example, I get my teaching license, right? I'm not going to get a bonus. I'm not going to get extra money for that in Korea to get a license, get my license. So why not just do it back here in America? True, it does have its problems. Teaching in America has its issues. I'm fully aware of this, but at least I know, hey, at least say, for example, if teaching doesn't work out, at least I have a transferable skill set, right? Whereas at least say if I stay in education, as time goes on, if I get more experience, I get a master's, I can at least get more salary, I get more pay, I get more money, right? At least, and I know I got a proper pension retirement, waiting for me once it's all over. So it's more like for career opportunities, like, and plus for me, like and another TikTok buddy of mine asked me, why don't I try teaching in other countries like Thailand or Japan or wherever? And I thought about that too, but I realized that I've been away for 8 years and I'm just tired of living overseas in general. Like I enjoyed my time living overseas, but I'm just ready to move on for new opportunities, for new adventures. And even if I were to move to another country, like it will only delay the inevitable. Like, yeah, sure, I'll go to the honeymoon phase of, oh, I love living in this country, I'm never going to go back. But eventually I want to move back home.
Gotcha.
And plus, I want to be close to my family and friends and whatnot. Everybody's, some people getting married. I miss a few married, people getting married. And one of my oldest nieces, she's in 10th grade now. Like I left from Korea. She was about 5th grade, I want to say, like early high elementary school. Now she's about to graduate high school in a couple of years. So I want to be there for that when she in a couple of years,
All that makes sense. You probably didn't intend to go there forever anyway, so you just
right. I thought so first, yeah. Like a lot of people, I thought, oh, I'm going to stay in Korea forever. I ain't going back here. Yeah, I realized that it's more for career opportunities. Time went on as I get old, especially when I got my 30s. That's when I started thinking more and more about what I want to do because I can't really do this forever.
Right.
And around fall 2023, that's when I started looking into, okay, what should I do to be a licensed teacher? Because I got family members and friends who are educators in South Carolina. So I started asking questions like, hey, what's the difference between a 10-year contract 10-month contract versus 12-month contract? So I started asking a lot of people questions. Hey, what's it like to be a teacher in this state? What's it like living in this city? So that's what kind of like started a curveball. So I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and start the process. And so I'm doing this, what's it called? Moreland University, this online teaching certification program. So I'll be a licensed teacher in Washington, D.C. And so my plan is by March, I haven't decided where I'm going, but I'm looking at New York City or Atlanta, Georgia, or somewhere in Georgia or South Carolina to be a teacher. I was looking at New York City for a while, but I realized, okay, it's going to be a lot harder to be a teacher there. So I figured, hey, let me go ahead and look at Georgia and the Carolinas as a backup option. So I am kind of looking more at Atlanta a little bit more, or at least on the outskirts, where I can find a teaching job in Georgia,
So we talked about this a little bit in the chat, but I'm gonna just have a little bit of it here. I'm gonna advertise for the city of Atlanta for you to come and move to. Atlanta is now the nerdiest place in the world where all the conventions and things that we got going on. Is the big gaming community, especially the fighting game community. I know you care about that. Ton of fighting game tournaments and just video game conventions in itself. Like Southern Fried Gaming Conference, final round was here until like a couple of years ago when they finally ended that. But final round was this huge fighting game tournament they did every year. It was a big thing that I did in college. There's MomoCon and DragonCon and Ranger Stop Pop and AWA Anime Week in Atlanta. There's a ton of stuff here in Atlanta. A ton of black nerds everywhere. Everywhere you turn is a black nerd in Atlanta. Or they're some type of nerd event, cosplay meetups. Atlanta's a very nerdy space. And like we also said, it's, I don't want to say LGBTQ friendly, but it is the capital of gay America in some.
Right, I'm aware of that. But I was worried about going back to the MomoCon and all them. I knew about them, and that's kind of what led me to look at Atlanta for a while too, because for the past couple of years, when I was preparing to move back to USA, I was kind of thinking of where I would like to move to, and I thought about Carolinas too, but what kind of led me to Atlanta because I thought, okay, I kind of want to start somewhere new, start somewhere fresh. Well, I am from South Carolina. That's what I moved to back in 2008. But I realized, I kind of want to start somewhere new. That's why I kind of looked at New York. I looked at Houston, Texas. And I thought, okay, you know what? Georgia could be a good spot. It's a sweet spot because it's got family both in Alabama and South Carolina. So it's a good sweet spot, travel both ways to get there. So that's what I'm kind of looking at the moment. And I'm kind of leaning more and more towards Georgia too, because I feel like it might be easier to be a licensed teacher there.
Yeah.
And of course, like that, all the nerdy stuff too. That's what I'm excited more because I got another TikTok friend of mine. She's preparing to move back she's from Atlanta. She's native Atlanta. From Atlanta, and she's moving back this year. And she told me about all these, they have how Georgia has MomoCon and all the nerdy events too. I thought, what, that could be actually good work. So I could look at that. So that's what I'm looking at too. Hopefully within the next year or two. I have still haven't made a decision when I'm going to be back. So, but we'll make the decision soon.
That's perfect. Not only all that nerdy stuff that I mentioned, but like the cost of living still cheap in Atlanta or in most of Georgia anyway.
Right.
Gwinnett County is like our largest school district, and they are constantly looking for teachers. So that is an in right there. Plus Gwinnett County, all that stuff. And again, like just don't live inside the city. Rent's too high for any place inside the city. But like if you find a nice neighborhood outside the city, Gwinnett County, it's reasonable. It's all reasonable.
I saw something about Gwinnett County, I believe. I think that was called Gwinnett County. Like that's on the outskirts of Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
So I heard about that. So I looked into that. I saw a job listed for teaching there too, for English teaching there. So we'll see how it goes. At the moment, like I said, I haven't made a decision yet when I'm gonna be there. But I'm looking for the next year or two to possibly get over there to that area. But that is pretty much the goal right now. That's what I'm looking at. I'm actually going to be in Atlanta in August too for a few days.
Oh, okay. Hit me up. That's the time.
Definitely. I will definitely hit you up. Hit you up for sure. I think around the 10th. I'm being around the 10th of August. That's gonna be in the city.
Since you've been far away from home for a long time, what's like the one thing stateside that you miss the most that you can't get in South Korea?
Obviously clothes for one.
Okay.
Okay. So to be fair, this year I actually got this tailor while I was in Bangkok a couple years ago. So this year's from Bangkok, Thailand. Clothes is one. The options for sandwiches for lunch meat. I definitely miss making a good sandwich. Like there's very little variety for lunch options like sandwiches, whatnot.
Really?
Sandwiches is not really a thing. Like Subway's huge in Korea. Like you can find a lot of Subway shops around Korea for sure. Also, I mentioned this in recent TikTok. One of the things I miss going to is the library because actually. Now, there are libraries in Korea, but usually the English sections aren't always the best or there's not many good options. Okay. There are a few places in Korea, there's like an English-only library. It's like a bunch of English books I used to go to when I was living in the city of Daegu. But I definitely miss being able to go to the library and get some books. And, I'll read some ebooks. I got a couple books on Google Play Store right now, but sometimes, I just rather like to have like a hard copy of a book,
Yeah, no, that makes sense too. Once you move back to the States, and you're officially over here for good, what's the first thing you want to do for yourself?
Let's see. Once I get settled in, probably start getting a bookstore, trying to get some books.
Okay.
Because I got some books too that I bought over the years, but I've always wanted to get like a big case like full of books, textbooks, comic books, and mangas, and whatnot. So I want to do that. I don't know. Yeah, I never thought about that really. I think it's more of I don't know. I never really thought about that actually. I'm not sure really what I'm gonna do. First thing I want to do for myself.
Nah, I mean, because like once you get like your living arrangements all together, work and all that stuff situated before you start work, you want to just take like maybe a week and just kind of explore a new area or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I probably got to get a car too and get my license renewed. Because at the time, because for me, I let my license expire back in 2019, right? And I thought I was never going to move back to America. So I'm like, I don't care. I don't need it no more. I'm not driving no more. But now I was like, damn, I'm moving to Georgia. I got to get a license. I got to get a car.
You need 2 licenses and 3 cars. And do not rely on MARTA. If you move to Atlanta, MARTA is just a gimmick in the city. Like you need a car. Get a car.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I am very aware of Atlanta traffic. Like, I actually got a childhood friend of mine, Bianca. She lives in Atlanta too right now. I told her, hey, I'm going to be looking at Atlanta. So I'm hoping to reach out to her by the time I get there, because she's supposed to go on a trip soon. So I'm hoping we can reach out and chat for a bit though. But I will also, of course, like I said, I'll definitely hit you up once I'm in town too. But I'm definitely excited to come there. I'm actually excited to be back in the USA this summer, just to see friends and family and check out Atlanta for sure.
Gotcha. I'm going to give you a warning.
Yeah.
You may think you know Atlanta traffic, but you have no idea about Atlanta traffic. I lived in Atlanta all my life, and I still, to this day, find new crap that happens on these Georgia roads that I've never seen before. And I'm used to terrible Atlanta drivers. It is terrible. It is so much worse than you think. I'd rather drive around Boston. I heard that's like ridiculous too.
Yeah, I'm aware of this. So I've been doing my research. I'm looking at various YouTube videos, like talking about the pros and cons of Atlanta. People saying, hey, don't go to Atlanta. Like, I'm aware of this. Like, for me, I feel as though since I've been living overseas for so long, I feel like I just can't up and jump, go say I'm moving to Atlanta. Like, hey, let's look at the pros. Let's look at the cons. How easy it is to find a teaching job. I'm doing all this research because a lot of foreigners who do the ESL thing, they just happen to go in Korea, Japan, China, wherever it may be, they'll do the ESL for like 10 plus years, move back home, And then they have a hard time struggling because one, they didn't take the time to learn a new skill. They didn't take the time to like get like a degree certificate, like, or say for example, do a code boot camp to help them find a non-teaching job, or get a teaching certificate, find a job. Because I knew somebody, he went back to Canada after being like here for like 7+ years, but he did a code boot camp first, so he get coding skills up, and then by the time he left, he's able to get like a coding job, full-time job back home in some country in Canada. So I told myself, hey, if I'm going to move back home, let's take the first year or two, get some experience, get my license, whatever I need to before moving back. So that way, when I do move back, at least I have something to help me find a job.
That makes a lot of sense. So we're gonna pivot again.
Sure.
Let's talk about your book. You wrote a book. I haven't read it thoroughly from what you sent me, but I have skimmed through it, and I really like what you did there. I really like how you're using I like how you created a book by just traveling East Asia and putting your experiences into it. So let's talk about your book. Where did the inspiration come from? I know you're still in the middle of working on it, so let's start.
Yeah, so my first book I actually wrote is called The Black Travel Guide to Incheon, South Korea. It's a city in South Korea next to Seoul, right? That was back in 2020 during COVID. The idea came from, I was watching this I think it's an online course about make side money and hustle and whatnot. And I kept thinking, like, what's something that I haven't done that no one's really done before? No one's written a black travel guide for Korea or anywhere in Korea, right? Like, I've seen some travel guides for solo men, solo black women, and those are great. But sometimes I feel like, okay, what's something that all black people across the diaspora, regardless of income, sexual rotation, what blur, non-blur, what can they use to travel to Korea, right? No one's done Korea. So I thought, okay, I'll make one because this is during lockdown. Plus, I wasn't teaching then at the time. I was working, but I had no kids. So I figured, hey, during the downtime, I'll write a book. And then I worked on it, published it that same year. I'm like, you know what? And there was some success for a first-time author. I got some sales, people liked it. And so I worked on another book too. Worked on the city of Daegu, South Korea. And that did pretty well too. So I thought, okay, and that's all the following year in 2021. And so I figured, hey, why not make a whole, and this is a book I'm currently working on right now, why not make a whole entire guidebook on South Korea for black and brown folk? Because I figured, one, no one's really done this. Two, there's a Korea pop wave, the Korea K-wave, Korea wave is still popular. People trying to go to Korea. So I figured, hey, why not capitalize on that? And also I figured, why not? No one's really done a black travel guide for South Korea. So the past couple of years, I've been working on this book. I've been going to different cities in Korea, taking all the pictures. Majority of the pictures, all the pictures taken, that was done by me. Now, some of the photo covers, chapter cover pages, I reached out to various Korean artists and black artists to make the cover pages. So I pretty much spent all my money is spent on this book too. And now I'm also writing a travel guide book on both. It's a 2-in-1 book. It's one for Thailand and Siem Reap, Cambodia. So I'm doing that right now too. I'm looking to publish both books by July 1st, 2025.
Perfect.
And so, and I've been sharing some of the work too in my TikTok. So I've been sending little tastes, little samples of the work. So you see some images of the books, some places I worked on. And I figured, why not make this? Because again, no one's really done this. And I'm pretty sure it'll be huge once it's ready to go. I actually got one commission artist. I reached out to him last year about making the cover page. He likes the idea of it, but honestly, I'm gonna wait till next year to pay for the covers because it's gonna be very expensive. But I think it's gonna be worth it for what he does, for his artwork. What I like about it, so I figure it's definitely going to cost me a big bag, but I think it'll be worth it, the investment.
That's cool. That's really cool. You're right. No one's never really done that. And to be honest, that's something you can take and just kind of make a black people guide to every country or region of the earth.
Pretty much, yeah. I'll pretty much now, for me, I have thought about becoming like a full-time travel influencer. And I actually did some work for a small magazine called Black Asia Magazine back in 2020. From 2020 to 2022. And I enjoyed the time. It was great. The guy's great. Got paid on time for commission for article. But I realized over time that it's kind of one of those cases where, like, be careful to turn about your hobby into a full-time job. Because some people love it, doing the full-time thing, like what they love. And hey, that's great. But for me, I realized I do like talking about travel. I like writing about traveling, but I realized I don't want to do this full-time. It's not for me.
Gotcha.
So that's why I'm not doing this. This is why it's kind of one of the cases where, like, I pour all my money towards my hobby, which is, of course, gaming and writing these books, right? Traveling. Because for me, I see, hey, if I feel burnt out, I'm gonna have ideas what I want to write about, I could walk away. I can take a break as much as I want to. And then, because once I take a break, I can get back to work. I got these ideas where I kind of write about, or when I'm editing, rewriting the chapters, passages in the book after taking a break. Let's change this idea. Let's change this out, Whereas, say, like, if I was making a full-time gig being a travel influencer, I got to post everything 24/7, 365, right? I can't take a job because, hey, this is my livelihood. I'm slave to the algorithm.
Right. Yeah. Oh, my God. Tell me about
that. Yeah. And some part of me wants to do it, but I realize, okay, this is not for me. Plus, I'm way too for like, I just can't handle, and some of the creative TikTokers will tell you that some people recognize me on the street in Korea. Some people, hey, I see you on TikTok. And I freeze up. Like, I get nervous. So, like, oh my God, somebody know me.
Yeah, I get the same way too. You never get used to that when, like, just random strangers come up to you. Like, I know you from your social media stuff. And I'm just like, I need an adult. I need an adult. So, yeah.
Yes, exactly. I am an adult. And it got crazy because apparently one of the lunch leaders at my school said, they see me on TikTok. I'm like, wait. Are you sure you seen me, or do you confused for another tall black man? Like, I want to be sure. Like, I want to ask him that. Like, are you sure it was me, or not another tall, dark-skinned black man? You sure it was me, right?
Oh my God, yeah, that's crazy. Oh my God, that is crazy.
I told my kids I have a TikTok, and of course the kids say, "Teacher, what's your TikTok thing?" I'm like, "Nope, I ain't telling you. You're gonna get me fired. Your parents are gonna get me fired."
Yeah. Oh my God, that's crazy. All right, so I wanted to ask you, out of your travel experience and with everything that you're doing for the book, what's one place in East Asia, in Southeast Asia, that Black people, regardless of where they're from, need to see in Southeast Asia or East Asia?
Let's see. I enjoyed Taiwan. I went to Taiwan. So my travel bucket, I've been to Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal. I did go to the Philippines, but I never really had the best. I've been to the Philippines, but I never had the best time. Not the country's fault, but just something always went wrong on my end. Like my credit cards would not be taken. Like I couldn't withdraw money. That's a story. My first time I went to the Philippines in 2016. None of my cards worked. I couldn't withdraw money. The only money I had was in my wallet. So I really couldn't do anything. I couldn't explore. I couldn't do anything. But not the country itself. I don't blame the country or the people. It's just that moment in time. So I also been to, I've been to Taiwan. I've been to Malaysia. I enjoy Malaysia a lot. And then, of course, I've been to both Thailand and Cambodia and Siem Reap, Cambodia. For Black folk, obviously, I'll go to, like many people have been to, Thailand's been great. Bangkok's really great, like a great start here for Southeast Asia. But I enjoy Thailand a lot. I'm hoping by late January next year, I want to go back to Thailand and Cambodia to finish up, get more information for my book, for that specific book. But I mean, I got enough material to make something, but I want to add more, just a little bit extra because I know the spots I want to hit up. But if I can't make it, then hey, I'll use what I got.
So let me ask you this. This is an interesting question, and this is something I've kind of noticed and done a little research on myself, especially when it comes to people from our generation, African Americans that grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. Why, in your opinion, do you think we relate more to Asian culture, meaning anime, manga, video games, things of that nature, versus not only our own American culture, but our African ancestry as well? I grew up in the late 90s or 2000s. Went to college. All my friends were heavy into anime, video games, and just anything Japanese, Japanimation, Korean culture, Chinese culture. We learned more about Asian culture than we did our own. Do you agree to that, or have you noticed?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, that's true. Because a lot of us, we grew up watching, like I said, Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, Toonami, 4Kids TV, the 4Kids Double, One Piece. It's both our fault, like the elders, like they could have taken the time. I get it, they had to work, especially during the 80s and 90s. Like, let's be real, because of the whole drug wars and whatnot. So obviously, the parents, they have the time to, work or teach their time, take the time. But I think, and also this comes from the educator side, I think somebody who works with kids, and I'll tell you, anybody who works with kids will tell you, will say this, parents, I know it's hard, but please spend time with your kids, educate your kids, work with them. Like, I know it's hard because, some of you working one job, two jobs, three jobs, you got to put food on the table, you got bills to pay. I get that, but really take the time to read to your kids. Please, I'm begging you. Like, and people like, and of course, as we got older, and, more Black people are like, especially in the 2010s, a lot of Black folk, started to go to the natural hair look. They're trying to do more, travel to Africa. I mean, that's great. That's awesome. But a lot of us, we never got the chance to learn it because, again, no one taught us there. Obviously, a lot of us didn't see on TV because, let's be honest, including myself, when it came to Africa, like, all we heard was like, oh, those, we've seen those videos, like UNESCO commercials, like the starving African kids in the huts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that myself. Like, I remember this YouTuber a couple years ago, was it this brother, this YouTube channel called Travel and Truth. He did like a bunch of Africa travel videos. I'm like, wow, this is like Senegal, Zambia, I think, another place where I'm like, wow, this place looks amazing. Why have I considered going to Africa? And now I want to go to Africa someday soon because, like I said, a lot of us, it's kind of one of the scenarios like, as kids, we don't think about it. But when we're older, it's like, oh, now I see, yeah, I wish my parents took time to educate us about this, our history. Right. Especially, for example, being this Pride Month, Black LGBT history. Because, for example, I have never heard of Bayard Rustin and didn't know how much of his impact had on the Black community, especially with Martin Luther King and his March to Washington, D.C. I had no idea who they were, or like say, and of course, learning about Black history. Me who I love history. Learning about Black history and seeing about like other Black famous Black people, like the only reason we don't hear about him, Bayard Rustin, or other famous Black LGBT people who played a big part, civil rights, because what they identify as. And our people, of course, as you probably know, or we're fully aware, we're pretty homophobic or transphobic. But it's like it scratches. I leave my head scratching. I'm like, bruh, you do realize if it wasn't for the Black LGBT community, we wouldn't have any civil rights.
Exactly. And a lot of people in the Black community like either don't know that because they didn't learn that, or they don't want to do research, or like you said, African Americans in this country are homophobic as fuck. It's so deeply rooted in who we are within our community, within the churches, within the church, within how just Black men are raised within the community here stateside. Because like it blew my mind too when I found that. I'm like, there are pictures in textbooks where these people are standing next to Dr. King and marching, and we don't know who they are. And then I, have to Google it like years later in my 30s. I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. I grew up my whole life learning it's not good to be gay, but yet here we are, queer men and women, trans men and women are marching along Dr. King, or the reason why civil rights kind of got started in the first place. And they connected not only the Black community, the Hispanic community, and it was the Black LGBT community back then in the 60s that got everyone together to like, hey, we need all these causes and make one thing. We need civil rights for everybody, not just one group over another. And it just boggles my mind today that you try to explain that to Black people, to the Black community, and the first thing is, no, my history ain't gay. Or that too. That's
my biggest beef. Like, bro, like I want to hear those stories. Like, hey, Black people are gay. That's not white people shit. That's white people shit. Right. That never happened to us. That was stuff because of slavery. Like, no. Their history, like literally, there are hundreds of African tribes. Like all cultures had some form of LGBTQ history. Everybody had it. They just had different names for it, different terms for it. But usually they meant the same thing. Like everybody had a trans people. Their trans people existed. Non-binary people have existed. They had different names for it, different cultures and meanings, but usually about the same. Like, it's nothing new. I think I can't remember the name of it, but I remember learning about like there's an African tribe, like say basically with women, like women had the power. Like lesbian women, what we call like as quote unquote studs, like they had the power. They can marry, they can have wives, they can have houses. They basically have all the power like most men would have, cis men would have, but they don't know about that because again, slavery, colonization, they're thought to be like literally every culture has LGBTQ. Most people, did homophobia and transphobia exist? Of course. But none of that, but that didn't start or really didn't, explode until the advance of like white supremacy, until the Abraham religions like Islam, Judaism, particularly Christianity in Europe. Yeah. When that blew up, that's when all our homophobia and transphobia existed. That's when it all came to pass.
Yeah, you're right. You are absolutely right. I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with other Black people and they sit there and say, oh, gay history isn't American history. And I'm like, but you realize that, those people say the same thing about American history. And the reason why we're in this CRT issue now stateside, where if we try to teach the truth, like, hey, this is what happened during Jim Crow and the Civil Rights era and the slavery era and Reconstruction era, it's CRT, critical race theory. And I'm like, we're just teaching facts about America that happened to Americans in American history, regardless of their race. But no, because it deals with Black people, these people don't think it affects them or they had anything to do with it when they had everything to do with it. And it's the same thing with queer people in the Black community. Queer people had a lot to do with where we come from in this country, especially Black queer people. Like, they were gay slaves. That blew my mind because, like, you don't hear people talk about slavery and homosexuality in that limelight, but they were gay slaves. They were masters that were raping Black men on the plantation for so many different reasons. So don't tell me that homosexuality has never existed. It's just some new thing that came about because of white people. Don't give me that. We've been here this entire time, and it's just aggravating that, like, within your own community, you gotta be a separate community, if that makes sense.
Basically, if you don't fit the standard, you ain't Black. And this is coming from a Blerd Black nerd. And also, I'm a Black atheist too. So yeah, I got a Black Quantum poster for a lot of offenses. So man,
we just became even better friends. I didn't even know like your religious anything. But okay, we can talk about that a lot off camera. I don't want to bring that up right here. This has been a great interview. Thank you for coming on. I know it's like Wednesday morning in Korea right now.
Yeah. It's almost lunchtime anyway. So, but yeah, that's good. It's been great though. But I will definitely hit you up once I'm in Atlanta though, for sure. We definitely got to hang out.
Before we go, is there anything else you want to say? Something special that's close to your heart, or a cause, or anything that you want to bring light to?
No, I can't think of anything at the moment. I know shameless plug. I'm sorry, but all I can say is if you are interested in my stuff, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok at the Blerd Explorer. Also, if you're interested in the book, I will do pre-orders starting around June of next year. I'll do the pre-order for the Black Traveler's Guide to South Korea and the Black to Brown Traveler's Guide to Thailand and Siem Cambodia. Both books will be ebooks only, but they'll be out by July 1st, 2025.
Definitely. And I'm definitely going to have you back on so we can just talk about both books and promote it more thoroughly. But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much. Again, this has been Blerdkast International. I'm going to work on that. But we went international. Black people everywhere around the world. Don't matter where you at. We ready to go and ready to be nerdy. But thank you guys so much for joining me on this episode of Blerdkast. You can listen to Blerdkast everywhere you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Google, Apple Music, and everywhere else, and soon we'll be on other smaller platforms as well. But you can also listen to Blerdkast on YouTube by subscribing to Blerdography. That's my YouTube channel. Subscribe to Blerdkast. Subscribe to Blerdography. Hit me up on the YouTube channel. Hit up my social media, Blerdography, everywhere across the board. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.